With mouths of praise and tongues of grace, we sing God's praises here. We seek His way, He hears our cry, He makes our pathway clear. Open your mouths and taste, open your eyes and see. God is good. God's near to us in darkness, His ear tuned to our cries. He's near us.
All right. Thanks, everybody who is starting to join us on the live stream, and then folks who are still here in person for our Q&A. So the way this will work is folks on the live stream, whether that's YouTube or Facebook, you can comment, and then we'll be able to see those. I'll ask those questions to Melinda. But also folks who are here in person, if you have a question, you ask your question, and then I'll reiterate it back to those on the live stream, and then Melinda will answer it. We'll do this for about an hour or as long as the questions last. So go ahead, and there is a little bit of a delay just for folks who are online, just so you know. There's probably like a 15-second delay when you comment something, so there may be some pausing and waiting for those kind of things, just to make sure everybody's getting questions in. But okay, my first question for you is, what does it mean to clench your pearls? Because I've heard you say that multiple times, and I had to like South or dictionary it. Yeah.
It's actually clutch your pearls.
Oh, okay.
Clutching my pearls. It's a Southern expression of mock outrage. Like someone says something that, you know, you disagree with or whatever, and you're like, oh. But it's really, you're like, whatever. You're not really that upset.
Perfect.
It's mocking.
That's what I was hoping it was,
Pure
but
mocking.
I was like, I shouldn't assume. I should ask.
Kind of like bless your heart.
Oh, like bless your heart. I loved using that term.
Yeah, it's a little mocking.
I had no idea what that meant when I pastored a church in the South, and people would say it all the time, and I thought it was like really endearing.
It's not.
Until the former pastor's wife said it to me in a way that I was like, that's not an appropriate moment to say that. And I knew now, bless your heart does not mean bless your heart.
Nope.
Can you, is it like rated G to be able to describe what it actually means on live stream right now? No, probably not?
Probably not.
Probably not, okay. Offline, we'll talk about that. Facebook has shut us down enough times that we don't want to do that.
Okay.
Like if we so as much infringe a little bit on copyright, we're in trouble.
Gotcha.
Yes, there it is.
Okay.
Oofta.
I don't know what
The northern
that-
catch-all.
That's a new one for me. Oh. Okay.
Okay, so any questions here? Nothing's coming in on the live stream yet, so I would love if people would comment and we could ask Melinda some questions. Anyone here? Brian? So the question is from Brian Holmes. He asked, how did you go through the process of becoming affirming? What did that look like? What opened the doors for you to have those discussions? What things did you read? What was that process for you to become affirming of the LGBTQIA community?
At the time, I was had just been exposed to Adam Hamilton. He is a Methodist pastor, I think in Kansas, maybe, and never heard of him before. And so we were doing a Bible study of his at the church that I was in, and he had just written a new book called Making Sense of the Bible, and he had a chapter about same-sex relationships. And so I read it, and he is affirming, and it was the first time I had ever read like someone from a pastoral perspective that affirmed gay people, and I thought, okay, this might be my guy. And so I became a follower of him, and that just kind of led me to other people that felt similarly. And I mean, that was the start for me. I was an undergrad at the time when my first child came out as gay, and my professor encouraged me to do a research paper on it. And so I did, and that changed my world too. So it was just kind of, it was a little bit of a process. It wasn't overnight. All I knew is that I loved the kid. Sure. That's it.
So in the same vein, another question came in from Trudy Schaffner. She said, one of the things that we value and others do at the Imago community is being a good ally to marginalized people. That's obviously more than just LGBTQ people. There's lots of marginalized groups within our country and in our city. But this takes work, she says. What have you done and are doing to be a better ally?
Well, I start by listening. I was in a book club over the summer. We were reading the book Be the Bridge by Latasha Morrison, and it was a bunch of white women, but we intentionally invited African American women to be a part of the club, and it was through Zoom. And so I had the opportunity to hear their stories and grew to love these women. And I was one of the teachers in this group, and it was like a 7-week process, and I think I might have said 10 words in the whole thing. It just became very apparent to me that I had nothing to offer to the conversation, that I needed to listen. And I was very much, was better informed on the other side of it. So the first thing I would do is listen to their story, listen to their experiences, and so I could understand them a little bit better. So as a matter of fact, one of the ladies that was in that group with us, she actually lives in Chicago, and she's very active in Black Lives Matters and all these great things. And so if I have the opportunity to move to Peoria, one of the first things I plan on doing is driving to Chicago and meeting that lady, because I just love her. So that would be exciting for me.
That's great. Trudy, hopefully that answers your question. If you have more follow-up questions or more you want to elaborate on that, feel free. This can be a back and forth conversation as well, even virtually. If you were in person, somebody might ask a follow-up to something more clear, clarifying. Vicky's very good at doing this. So she can either speak for you, or you could actually comment and speak for yourselves. But I know also that she has probably good questions as well this morning to ask. You've asked great questions this whole process. And when I was interviewing, she was the best questionnaire of all, for sure. Like, I would go to bed, having nightmares about the dreams she asked, the questions she asked.
Same,
yes. Okay, good. Great. Virtual fist bump. Yes. Okay, what else? Any other questions? Looks like David Hensel asked, what are some authors' books that have been important to your faith journey?
Probably, wow, this is gonna take me a minute. Probably the most pivotal is Richard Rohr's Falling Forward. It took me a long time to read it because it's a slog. It's a heavy read, but it's worth it. An Altar in the World by Barbara Brown Taylor. Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert.
And how are those books important to your faith journey?
How? Okay.
That was a Vicky question. I know I was embodying her in that moment. Yes.
The Falling Forward has been important because, thank you.
It's falling upward is what Vicky said.
It's falling
Yeah.
upward.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
You just got done preaching. Your brain is mush. I
You
know how
got that
this
right.
goes.
It was pivotal as far as helping me realize that even though I had gone through this process of deconstruction and unraveling what I had always believed to be true, and was in the midst of that there was still something that held the center, and there was some things that I could work with that I still believed were central and true that had not been shaken. And so I started with those. And that was an encouragement for me to find what those are and work with that. Eat, Pray, Love was critical for me in working and processing my divorce. And it goes with me everywhere. I have it in my hotel room. It's just like marked up. And not just about through the divorce, but just about my faith journey in general. It was huge. It's been huge. And when I first told my pastor I'm going through a divorce, he said, I have a book you need to read. Okay. He said, Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I'm like, you're not going to tell me to read the Bible or, some self-help book? Nope. Read, Eat, Pray, Love. Never read it. Watched the movie. It took me probably 5 or 6 months to get through that book. It was a while because I would just have to stop and just be like, wow. And it was just revolutionary for me. Barbara Brown Taylor, for an altar in this world, altar in the world, how she describes that there are no differences between secular and sacred, and I think I've shared this before, was life transformational for me. I no longer see the distinctions anymore. I believe everything is holy, everything is spiritual. So that's that.
Awesome. Laura Holmes is sitting in the... What were the things in the center of your faith that were unshakable? Question from Vicki Brown.
Okay. Jesus loves me, this I know. That was it.
Can you sing?
Yeah, I can.
Can you sing it for us?
I'm not going to.
Okay. Yes. I love that she can say no. That's a good sign there.
Yep. Yeah, that was what I had. That was what I had for my kid. Jesus loves you. And that's what I had for myself. Jesus is for me, and he's not against me. He's not working things in my life to defeat me. He is active in my life, and he's a part of my life. And how that all works is very mystical, and I'm kind of a mystic by nature. But for me, all I had was, I am deeply loved by Christ.
Who is Christ is the question that comes again from Vicki Brown. She used to be an FBI interrogator in her former life.
Can somebody make her be quiet, please?
No.
I'm kidding.
If you come here,
I'm kidding.
this is your life now.
I'm just kidding.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I mean, the obvious answer is the Son of God, right? Beyond that, I really couldn't tell you. I know what the Gospels say about him. I know how the Gospels describe him. I know he was, a man of compassion and love, and he had harsh words for the people that today we typically in church world don't have harsh words for. We typically elevate them, what I know of Christ is what the Gospels tell me. Outside of that, I don't really know.
Yeah, it's an honest answer. I think a lot of people in our church would say, I don't know to a lot of questions, but I think Son of God is I think Jesus is probably, for many people, the thing that they hold on to. And what Jesus looks like and who that is nuanced in many ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So what's been said here, for those who can't hear on the live stream, Vicki was saying that throughout this interview process, Melinda has shared a lot about who Christ is to her, just not use the word Christ. She's just used her experiences with Christ. And so Vicki already knows the answers to these. She wants us to draw the answers out so that we can hear the things that we've heard Melinda share through the process. So I may just hand this mic over to Vicki again, but we'll see.
I'll just encourage you.
Okay.
Talk to me about Christ being a still small voice.
Okay.
You talked about the way that Christ appeared to you in the forms of other people.
Right.
You talked to me about how the Son of God talked to you through interactions with your children.
Right.
All of those ways, you're telling me who Christ is.
Gotcha.
And so however you want to work with that and help us understand those experiences,
Gotcha.
how Christ has influenced you, so will be it.
Sure. I think what I was hearing from you is something more theological in nature. And now I understand what you're saying. I was trying to be proper. I'm anything but proper. Man, I shared a story with you guys last night. Several years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids at home and not a dollar to my name. And we were working with Vacation Bible School at the time. Any of y'all remember Vacation Bible School? My kids were very young. My 3 older kids were very young, and I was volunteering for that. It was during the day, and I went to the church that morning, and I had an issue with a tire on my van, and one of the men in the church, he was helping out that morning, and he said, "Hey, you've got this issue with your tire." He said, "You need to let your husband know so he can fix it." And I said, Sure. So I make it home, and I call my husband and I say, we have to fix this tire. And he said, "Okay, we'll get to it." Well, in the meantime, this man from our church showed up at my door, and he said, "Give me your car keys. I'm going to go fix your tire for you. Your husband can pay me back." Okay. So the kids were down for a nap, so he went and took care of the tire. He dropped the keys in the mailbox. I never even saw him again. My husband comes home from work that afternoon. He walks in the door, and he said, "Who put 4 brand new tires on our van?" I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And he said, Ken, that was his name. He said, "Ken had to have gone and put 4 brand new tires on our van. We did not have the money for 1 tire, much less 4 brand new ones, and we needed 4 brand new ones." To me, for me, that was Jesus. And that's how I experience Jesus, is through those experiences. I can see Jesus in the scriptures, but a lot of times that's intangible for me, probably like it is for most people. For me, I need to see Jesus with some skin on this earth for me to get it, for me to grasp it. And you know, that's just happened to me over and over and over. And I know it has for you too. But I was kind of schooled in a way of growing up that God doesn't work that way. God only works through the pages of the Scripture. Christ is only revealed through the pages in black and white in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. And He is. But man, when you need 4 brand new tires, you know, there's not a whole lot in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John going to get you 4 brand new tires. You need Jesus with some skin on. To me,
That experience is theology.
it is theology. You're exactly right.
Yeah. We've got another question that came in from Laura Holmes. She said, "What do you believe the gifts you would bring to Imago?"
I have the gift of teaching, and I enjoy that. I've taught in churches since I was 22, 23 years old. It is a joy for me. For someone to, for me to work through a sermon or a Sunday school lesson or whatever, and I feel like I've got a word, a prompting from God in that, and I feel like, I know that was God. I know that was God. I know that was the presence of God and inspiration. And for me to be able to connect that with someone in the room, and they're like, "Oh, yes." man, that's everything to me. You couldn't see me if you're live streaming over here on the side of the room after I preached. I was a puddle, an absolute puddle. I cannot even tell you, because I just think, why in the world would God go to all that trouble for me? But God does, and he does it for you too. And so teaching, preaching is a gift. I also think I bring a gift of compassion and listening. And I have a curiosity about people and their lives and their experiences. And I want to hear what you have to say. What's your story? What brought you here? Why are you at Imago? Why? What brought you here? Were you hurt? Were you not hurt? Why are you still here? Why are you still believing in this story? Rachel Held Evans would say, on the days that I believe this, on the days that I believe this, I think we all, if we're just dead level honest, can say, there are minutes, hours, days, weeks, years, I do not believe this. So why are you still here? What do you still believe in? What's your core? I want to hear that. I want to be inspired by you. I want you to speak a word to me, and I'm just like, oh my heavens, yes. Because that's what pushes us forward, is knowing God is at work. So I think those are some of the gifts that I bring.
So teaching, listening, compassionate person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what areas of social justice, Chris Schaffner asks, are you passionate about, and in what ways do you hope to engage them if you move to Peoria?
That's a really good question. Obviously, for me, it's going to be the LGBTQ community and making sure that they're treated equally. I have a transgendered son, and I know there's a thing in the news now that there's some question as to whether or not they will have health care and what kind of rights they might have at some point. It's my kid. I'm all about that. I am just now coming to a point in my life where I am more in tune with African Americans and what they've gone through, what they're going through, and what can I do to help? How can I be an advocate? Since this has all been happening, when it started with George Floyd, I kept thinking, man, I really should post something on Facebook about it. I really should. I got to let people know I'm on their side. I've got this. I love you. And just felt the still small voice say, nope. Because I felt it was more important that I make one-on-one connections with an African American that maybe I've spoken 5 words to my whole life. And so as I'm learning and walking through that, it's been an education, and I've needed it, and it is becoming more of a passion for me. But I'm new at it, and I can confess that.
All right, thanks. Diane asks us, tell us about some projects, paid or unpaid, or preschools, you have organized, problems that came up, and how you resolved them.
Okay, let me think. My glasses are fogging up because it's hot. We helped start a after-school and summer program for at-risk kids in the area of Huntsville that we lived in at the time. And yes.
The question Diane asks, what are some of the factors that made them at risk?
A lot of it had to do with the color of their skin, the places that they lived in. They were, poor. They were on scholarship there at the program. Is that what you're talking about? Does that answer it? Yes, yes. So yes, we wrestled with that. We had discipline problems. We had behavior issues that ran, and that was across the board with a lot of them. And there were a lot of times that it would have just been a whole lot easier just to say, we're going to have to let you go. We're going to have to, this is not working. Let's just cut ties. But they had nowhere else to go. They were in single parent homes. There was no one else that could offer that care for them after school and in the summer besides us at the fees that we did with the scholarships that we had. And we just, for me, what I did was I made a very conscious effort to befriend the parents, especially, if it was a single mom or a single dad. And so they knew that the avenue was open, the avenue of communication was open so we could talk. They also knew that I loved their kid. Man, if they don't think that, they're out. If you don't love my kid, I'm out. But when you communicate to a parent, I love your kid, you can do something with that. So we just made it work. We gave grace upon grace. There were some kids that came to our home on the weekends. If the parent had to work and their sitter fell through, would come to our house. And they would stay for a few hours. And you make those connections and build those personal relationships. You make it work because it is the right thing to do.
Does that answer your question? Yes? Okay. So the question is, how many people, how did you manage the staff and volunteers?
It was me and my husband at the time, and we had, I think, one other person to help us part-time. We had probably 28 to 32 kids. Some days there would be more. We had some that kind of came in and out. It was a big endeavor. It was a lot of trust, and we took it very seriously.
Other questions? Looks like nothing has come in online lately, so if anyone online has any more questions, feel free to do that. We've caught up with the questions that have come in. Anyone in person? Brian Holmes. So the question is, what are some of the benefits and the struggles of staying in relationship with some of the people in your life that you have different views from now?
When I flew up here in July to meet with the search committee, my very best friend came with me. We've been friends for 20 years. She is very conservative, and we do not interpret the Bible the same at all. We don't see life the same way at all. But we've been able to manage that friendship because she's always been willing to listen to me, even if she disagreed. There were some things that were said on a theological basis that Friday night that we got back to our hotel, and she was like, yeah, and I said, well, and I'll just give you this for example. She said, someone said something about God and described God, either he or she. She was like, God's a he. And I said, says who? Where do you read that? Well, that's what the writer said. Okay, do you think, oh God, I don't know that I can say this.
Go ahead.
Do you think God has a penis? Really? She was like, well, I've never thought of it. Exactly. Think about it. Think about the scriptures that you know of that describe God in a feminine way, a motherly way. She started naming them. Oh. So why does that bother you? Because exactly. You don't even really have a good answer. It's supposed to bother me. We have a couple of friends that we've hung out with for over 20 years. It's kind of been the four of us for 20 years. Now, the other two, I really can't be myself around because it would just be a fight. And I don't want to fight. That's not my nature. And so they were planning on coming up the following weekend because we get together like 2 or 3 times a year for a weekend. And I had told Andy, I said, I really don't want to go because I completely shut down for the weekend because I know what I say will not be received. So I just shut up. And so that weekend we were talking about that, and Josh said, then why are you still friends with these people? And I was like, I don't have to be friends with them anymore? So you gave me permission to say, maybe you need to let that go if it ain't working for you. And so on the way home, I told Andy, I said, I can't go. I don't want to be around them. They rob me of who I am. And I don't want to be around people like that. And so she called them that Tuesday, and we canceled them. I canceled the excursion. That's a good friend because she wanted to be around those 2 women. But she did it for me. Because we're able to have those hard conversations and we still come away loving each other. Now, I have family and friends. I have church friends that see the Bible differently from me, see the social landscape differently than me. We're not going to be best friends. But I'm still always looking for ways that I can be friendly and be a friend to them. We're not going to have sleepovers and braid each other's hair. But when I see them in Walmart or when I see them at church, I can legitimately feel love and joy at seeing them. And you just have to move past that because it's really, to me, it's just not worth it to completely write people off unless it is something much deeper than how we interpret John 3:16 or how that's not worth it to me. We interpret the Bible differently. Okay, so what? If you're mean to people, if you see people in a way that is dehumanizing, we're not going to have a whole lot to have in common. I can still smile at you.
Yeah, I think that story shows an interesting and important distinction because there were some women you had to create a boundary with because it was unhealthy for you. But there was also still a woman, a friend, that you think very differently from, and you're able to still remain in a relationship and be close to her, and she's still your best friend. And she flew all the way here with you for your interview, right? And yet you're still really close with her, and you love her and care about her because your relationship with her isn't unhealthy. She doesn't treat you poorly. You can have a dialogue, not be shut down. And so I think that's really beautiful. And I really appreciate that question because that was very revealing to me when I found all that out.
She doesn't even believe women can be pastors.
Yeah.
So the fact that she flew up here with me for
and
a co-pastor, it was like, wow, that's a friend.
It is, yeah. Is it start play? A game has started playing on her phone.
I'm so sorry. Hold on, let me stop this.
Okay. His question is, what are the benefits of being in a relationship with somebody that you have different views from, like your best friend?
Well, because there's mutual respect and understanding and compassion for one another. There's some people that we're not going to get away from because they're family, right? We may not have as close of a relationship as some family members have, and that's the case for me. I'm not very close to my immediate family because we are very different and we see the world differently. And for me, I was still willing to have the relationship, but at the same time, when I was around them and things would come up that were just terrible and awful, and I had to say something. I mean, I'm like, I can't believe you. Why are you, you know, you could see the defensiveness and the anger, and it just created more of a tensiousness. I just made up a word for me, and I don't like that. So I've had to back away from even close family members because it's just so icky. But they're still family. I mean, when it comes to Christmas and Thanksgiving, it's still family. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to have this really outstandingly close relationship with them.
So it sounds like what you're saying, like, is the benefit is the history, the connection. You can continue to build to remain and have that. You don't lose that role that person has in your life, even though it could be challenging at times as well. Okay. Does that answer your question? Sort of? Not really? Okay. Do you want to unpack that more? Do you have any more to?
That was a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Right, because that's not healthy. So I do have people, I should say this about my family. We don't live very close to one another physically. So it's not like we're away from each other. But I am in more close contact with even the people that I work with every day that view the world very differently than I do. And for the sake of peace and harmony, there's just some things that are just off the table. And that's okay. I mean, that's okay. I don't have to have a fight with every single person. However, it is important that I hear what they have to say about things and not close that out. For example, if they bring up something that I don't agree with, that doesn't mean I walk out of the room. That doesn't mean that I start immediately, coming after them. But it does mean that out of respect, that I listen to them. And it's not even important that I go back and forth with them. Because 9 times out of 10, they already know, yeah, she probably disagrees with this. So I don't know if this is a term you guys use in Illinois. It is one in Alabama. It's really not a hill worth dying on. And so you got to pick those. There are hills worth dying on. There really are. But then there's others that are not. But to never even acknowledge that there's different kind of hills, that's not healthy either. You got to know that there are other ways to see the Bible. There's other ways to see the world and be exposed to that, even if it's not your particular way. I think that's important as a pastor, because I would think as a pastor you're gonna get all kind of interpretations and worldviews, and you've got to be willing and able to learn from them, even if you think they're dead wrong. There might be something that they believe and say and think that's worth your time. Because if we don't think that, we are prideful and haughty and arrogant and gross. Does that help?
Great. For those of you who couldn't hear before, Brian, as chair of formation team, had conversations with Melinda yesterday, and there were some things that she said in their conversation that he wanted to draw out, and so he asked a Vicky question to draw something out, and in the end, his response was, that's what he wanted us to hear her say. So you have probably said the same things over and over again to different groups, and you're like, I don't know who I've said this to, and I don't know how many times I've said it, and I don't want to say the same thing over and over again. It's hard. And when we were doing it virtually, like, you're seeing the same faces you've seen in person, like, who we have no idea that there's all these people online who haven't heard you say those things yet. So candidating and interviewing during a virtual church process is just Yeah,
Fun stuff.
Put that in your resume.
Yeah.
Did that. What does
Right.
Melinda do for funsies?
What is that?
This is from Joel Shoemaker. I fully expected him to ask that question. Yes.
When I say I'm probably the most boring person on the planet.
No, I got you beat. I
am pretty boring. You know, yikes. I used to have more of a life and more of hobbies before pursuing my graduate degree, but I don't remember what those were, and I don't remember I don't remember. I'm going to get back to it. I enjoy conversations with people. I'm energized by theological conversations. I'm energized by political conversations. I'm energized by social conversations.
You love cats, musicals. The question was, do you like animals? This is actually criteria to be a pastor now at Imago Days. I love animals. I love eating them, but I'm just not huge with pets. Yeah.
Yeah, I love animals.
There we go. See? I set you up for that. But you like musicals. You're not totally
I do
boring.
love musicals.
We talked
Yeah.
about that yesterday. You like
Yeah.
Moulin Rouge? Is that what it is?
My favorite, yeah.
So you enjoy movies?
I'm not really a movie person.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes.
I was trying to help you out here.
I
That
know.
you're not,
I
can't
told
be
you
that
I'm
boring. That you
boring.
have
I'm just
nothing.
boring.
What do you do to like decompress or relax or enjoy your life at all besides read for graduate school? Joel's a librarian. He's the one who asked the question.
Well,
and you love reading, so.
Yeah, but that sounds so boring, and I know it does. But I'm sorry, but that's.
Well, Joel would love that answer because
Okay.
he's a librarian. So you've
Okay.
now offended him by saying reading is boring.
I'm so sorry, Joel. I'm so sorry.
kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I do love to read. That is how I decompress. I read so much of a theological nature that it's hard for me just to read for fun. I don't have a lot of time for that. So now I'm having the time to read for fun. So I'm trying to rediscover that. So I'm always looking for new authors. And what is that? Is that an angry?
Joel just sent the heart emojis. Like
Okay,
he's
good.
like he loves your answer to that.
Okay,
now.
good. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
You've reconciled yourself. Bethany Through asks the question, this is a great discussion. Thank you for being so transparent. Loving others who are family with different views has challenges, but I understand finding the value in the relationship. I hear that you, especially though, I hear you, especially through the discussions happening this year. So she was just kind
Gotcha.
of giving you some
Yeah.
feedback there. But Karen Walters does ask a question. She says, do you know what number you might identify with in the Enneagram?
I am a 4-wing 3, although I do have a little bit of some 5. The 5 in me is where I am more of an introvert. I don't meet people easily, new people easily. I usually say something really crazy, so I have to just kind of, okay, be careful here, stop. Like I've met some of you for the first time this weekend, and I've just been like, rein that in. I want to be careful, and because I just feel awkward and it just feels forced and not natural. So on my part, not on anybody else's part. And I really do like being by myself. I do get energy and being charged just being by myself, just in my own bedroom, in my pajamas, reading a book with a glass of wine. And the kids know, do not open that door because I want to be quiet.
There's your hobby.
That's it. That's it. That's my
Drinking
hobby.
wine in your room by
That's
yourself.
it. That's it.
Also could be a problem.
Yes.
What is, as far as Enneagram, there may be some in our community there are going to be some in our community that aren't familiar with the Enneagram
Okay.
yet, even though we've talked about it exhaustively. There's a lot of people who are new in our
Okay.
community. So what is Enneagram 4 and the 3-wing and a 5? Can you describe
Okay.
that for us?
The Enneagram 4 is the idealist. They are, not only are they idealist, I'm not sure what the word is there. They are an idealist. Let's go with that. They also have their driving need of a Ford not afford, a 4 is to be authentic, is to be genuine. And when I'm in situations where I feel like this is fake, this is not genuine, which for me a lot of times can happen when I'm meeting someone new sometimes. I feel like I got to ask you how the weather is, and I don't care how the weather is. I really don't. We tend to be in our head a lot. We tend to think that we are the most unique person on the planet. There's nobody else like us, and that's true. It's true. It's true.
Vicki Brown is also a 4, and she just said that was true.
We are very special.
You guys are going to either really get along or it's going to be some intervention needed.
The wing of the 3 is the performer. And I do have a strong wing of the 3 because I do like to look a certain way and be perceived in a certain way. I want things to look good. Not necessarily in house cleaning. Unless you come to my house, then I'll make sure it's okay. Otherwise, I'm a pretty messy person. But as far as personal look, I am a girl that I like to dress up. I like to get it all out and just do the thing. That's how my 3 gets expressed.
And then how does the 5 manifest itself sometimes?
That is the introverted part of me.
Okay, yes.
So,
you said
yeah,
that.
I've got a little bit of some, hard to figure out maybe. Yep. But a 4 would say that. Sure. A 4 would say, you can't figure me out. I am unknowable.
So true.
So that's right.
Keep them guessing.
That's it.
It's literally what I say about Vicki Brown. Anytime someone asks me about her, I'm like, I can't figure her out. I don't know. She's a mystery. Yep, she's a mystery. But it's like a fun mystery, like a toy in a cereal box. That was a thing a long time ago, I guess, but not anymore. But sometimes you like the toy and sometimes you don't.
It's true.
That's true. What else? And we don't have any other questions that have come in online. Anything else in person? No pets. No pets? No. Superhero movies? Nope. No superhero movies. Her and I are super in sync here because I don't have an inner nerd. I don't have a pet fetish. I don't. Is that people just seem super excited about pets? Maybe fetish is maybe more of a sexual term. I shouldn't have used that. Yeah, why do you want to move to a cold state to be a pastor is the question. Or just why do you want to be a pastor in general?
When I was 15, by that time I had already gone through some trauma in my life, and I was trying to make sense of it as a person of faith and was having a hard time reconciling it. And I came across the scripture in Romans 8:28. We know all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and those who are called according to his purpose. And I remember thinking, what in the world? This was not good. What happened to me? So what's going on with this? And so, in my bedroom as a 15-year-old girl, I am crying out to God, and I in pain, and trying to figure what that means. What does Romans 8:28 mean? And I felt that still small voice of a calling over my life that God was going to bring good out of bad. And I remember telling God that night that whatever he wanted me to do, I would do it because I wanted to see good come out of bad. It was bad enough that I was desperate. Please let me see something good out of this. And I also told God that same night when as I described my calling, that if you can bring good out of this, good on you. Give it your best shot. Because I don't know that I believe that. but I'm willing to take you up on it. I also remember telling God that night that I would go wherever he told me to go. Well, I wasn't thinking of Illinois and rural Mississippi. Probably couldn't have located it on a map. But I very distinctly, and I'm a person that journals, so I have a journal for this. I'll go wherever you tell me to go. Fast forward many years later, as I became an adult into my 20s and 30s, I felt such an overwhelming need and opportunity wherever I was to love on people in a shepherding kind of way. You had talked about how you love to find people's gifts and help them plug that in somewhere where it's fulfilling and it's life-giving and not life-draining. And I had that same thing when I was in my 20s. And I just felt that drive to help people process that you have a gift. Let's figure out what it is. Let's work through this together and let's be in an area that gives you life. And that gives me great joy. I didn't realize at the time that was pastoring. That was shepherding. I just thought I was being a pastor's wife. I just thought that's what you did. But it wasn't. I was pastoring. I just wouldn't have called it that at the time. And it became the passion of my life to help people see God in creative and new ways, and to come out of that box, to pull God out of that box that maybe they had put him in, that God only works this way, and God would never use this to teach us something or help us to see God. And when I see people respond to that, it gives me joy. Now, I've had people get mad at me along the way too, for whatever reason. Some things I could tell you stories about that they got mad at me, which were over things that were just so inconsequential and stupid. But then I had to remember that their feelings are their feelings. And I don't have the right to tell them, you shouldn't be offended by what I did or said. I don't have the right to do that. So I've learned to try to make amends with those situations and with those people. It's the right thing to do, even if I think it's wrong, even if I think I've done nothing wrong, which is a very prideful way, at least for me, to kind of see the world. And so as I've leaned more into that, and I also found, let me just say this too, from the time I was in my teens, I would have people come to me asking me for advice on something. What do you think I should do? And I always thought that was a curious thing. Why are you coming to me? I'm 16. What are you doing? But I found that to be a pattern in my life. I don't know if that's a gift or a curse. I'm not really sure. But I think that's also a part of pastoring, that there's something within my body language or my makeup, my personality, whatever, that allows people to see that I am somebody, hey, I can share my heart with. And as a 4 who's not afraid of darkness, I think that makes it a lot easier.
Thanks for sharing that. Diane has also asked a question. We'll do this one and maybe one more that I have in my mind, and then we'll wrap up our time together. It's what are some creative ways to be connected during a church pandemic, or being connected church during a pandemic? How comfortable are you with new technology and social media?
The second question, not much at all. I'm not very technological. I will openly say that, but I'm willing to learn. Y'all tell me what I need to know, and I'll learn. It probably has to do with my age, and my brain just does not really work that way, probably more than anything. But I'm willing to learn. Show me the ropes, and we can do this. Creative ways in a pandemic. When I was at Weatherly as an intern for families with children and youth, we did, like for Easter, obviously we couldn't meet at the church. We couldn't do the big Easter egg hunt. We couldn't do the big things that we normally would have done. So what I did was we put together these Easter baskets for the kids, and we did them for youth and children, and just different things. It wasn't anything really major. It was just some things to remind them that we're thinking of you and you're loved, and put Easter eggs in there, the whole thing. And we just went around town to all the youth and children that were members of that church. I know you guys don't do members, so it was a little different. And, you know, we socially distanced. We rang the doorbell. We set the baskets down. We walked back 6 feet. And, hey, just wanted to tell you Happy Easter, and we're thinking of you. We did the same thing for summer. We did a summer basket of things that were age appropriate for each age group. And we did the same thing. We did the same thing with our graduates. We couldn't have a graduate Sunday, so we had to get creative. We did like, do y'all have a graduate Sunday here? Do y'all recognize graduates?
Holly does that mostly on a one-on-one basis,
Okay.
but we have some. We haven't had a ton of like older kids graduating, but we did do some of that this year. Holly acknowledged some of our graduates, and
So in the South, as far as graduation Sunday, typically what churches will do is they have a big graduation Sunday, and you honor the kids in your class, the kids that are graduating. They get to walk out in front of the congregation in their cap and gown representing their school. You have pomp and circumstance. You have like a slideshow with each graduate's baby pictures where so everybody cries appropriately. And then we have a reception afterwards. And a lot of kids will have like a storyboard or like something set up on a table that kind of describes their high school career. Like if they were a sports person, they'd have their Letterman jacket. It's just really cool. You just get to see the different personalities. And then there's a big reception with a big cake. The cake is that's it, the cake, the big cake. Well, we couldn't do that this year, and we couldn't do all that recognition. So we did a slideshow, but what we did instead is we had an individual cake. I think there were 9 graduates. We had an individual cake made for all the graduates with their picture on it in their cap and gown and their name, and we delivered those cakes so they could share with their family over there. So everybody got a cake, and then we did like some gifts. We went around to all the graduates' houses and visited with them and did that. And then, like I said, we did the summer baskets too. There are things you can do to still reach people in a pandemic, but we've never done it before. So I think it's really good to listen to what other churches are doing, and it's okay to imitate if it's working. I mean, pick it up and run with it if it's working.
well, unless there's another question, please, it's fine. Why is the church important is the question from Vicki Brown.
Okay. The example that I gave with my tires, that's why the church is important. Had I not been there, had I not been a part of that, who would have known that I needed tires? God uses the church to be Jesus with the skin on. Not just the church, I get that, but it's a good starting point. And we get to see needs privately, publicly, that maybe the community doesn't, maybe their workplaces don't see. How many of us go around talking about certain things at our workplaces? Some people do. Most people probably don't. But in community, in a Sunday school classroom, or in a Facebook thread, or a prayer request on Sunday morning like you guys do, you can just let that be. And the church should be that safe place where I can tell you, I'm not doing so good today. Could you pray for me? This should be the place that should happen. And I would like to, as a pastor, be an advocate for the safe space in the church. I get that a church has not always been a safe space, and that is to a lot of detriment. But I want to be the person that gets to fix that on my end, and however I can, in whatever small way that I can, so that you know and you know and you know I'm safe. You can tell me the dark. You can tell me the ugh. And I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to give you a cute little scripture and tell you, now just believe this and you're good. I'm not that person. The church at its best, I believe, should be those things. It should be the safe space where we can say this, where we couldn't say it anywhere else.
So my last question I had for you is, why Imago Day? Why is this a church specifically that you chose, that you wanted to serve and potentially be a part of?
So I think I shared this yesterday on the question and answer time, or whatever. I forgot what that was. Was that the question and answer time? Okay, thank you. That you came across my Facebook scroll, and just randomly and so out of left field and weirdly, and as I began that process and things began to unfold and things were said in interviews, but the first thing that I did was I looked at your website and I thought, wow, that's a really cool looking church. Your website is great, by the way.
Shout out to Lindsay. She did an amazing job.
Is she here?
Yeah, she's not here today, no, but
Okay.
She's incredible. And she also did your page that has
You are awesome,
a
Lindsay.
layout and introduction.
You are awesome.
She does great work.
And so I thought, man, this might be a place for me. But it's in Illinois. It's in Illinois, God. But I went ahead and I applied and thought, maybe, maybe not. And in the process of all of that, of talking to you guys, and I think I submitted my resume in November of last year, maybe, or December. The more we talked, the more I could see myself here. I could see that we think alike in a lot of ways, and that if we didn't think alike in some ways, it was still safe. It was still okay. And I felt like for the first time in a church context, I could really be who I really am. And nobody would fall apart if I said, I'm not doing so well, or I'm having trouble with my kids, or whatever. I felt like I would be safe because it was obvious to me that the people that are here now, they're safe. You can see that. I can hear that from talking to the search committee. This is a good spot. I told the search committee that, if I lived in Peoria, this is where I'd be. I said yesterday, I know that will make Rob Collins mad. This is where I'd be. This is the church I've been looking for my whole life. You guys have got it going on. Do I think naively that there are no problems and there's no issues? Nah. I get it. It's church life. I get it. But that four in me that's idealist and aspirational and even romantic, I see you guys being those things. You're already doing those things. And so at your worst, I feel like I can see your heart, and that even at your worst, we want to be those things. And we're going to work until we are those things. We can be close to those things because that's important to us. I see in this congregation people that really do walk the walk that they claim to walk.
Brian Holmes was recently saying in our formation team meeting a really neat story about Nadia Boltzweber, and how in their church she will often say to people right away when they first start attending and coming, like, we're going to hurt you. We're going to upset you. We're going to tick you off. We're going to say something that rubs you wrong. And the question is, will you be able to stay, and how will you handle it after you experience that, right? Like, you're guaranteed. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I have a lifetime of being hurt in church.
Yeah.
I have a lifetime of hurts, things that have been said cruelly, intentionally or unintentionally. Man, I've got the baggage for that. I really do. but I've still stayed.
Yeah.
That does not run me off.
Yeah.
I might cry, probably will cry because I cry at everything. And it probably will sting. It will sting. And it may smart on me for a while. But I am a forgiving person because I have been forgiven. And at some point, I'm going to forgive. It may not be today. It may not be 5 minutes after you've said something. It may not be 5 minutes after you came back and apologized. It may be a process for me, depending on how deeply wounded I was. But I work through it. I don't want to be bitter.
Yeah.
I don't want to be bitter.
Yeah, I think part of being a church that holds generous orthodoxy, you have to equally hold the value of forgiveness and grace, because none of us are going to do it perfectly or flawlessly. It's a process. It's hard. And I heard somebody say once that there is no safe space, but there is protected space, meaning that there are spaces that can be created that you know that if somebody says something that's hurtful or wrong or out of line, that people will call you on it, and you'll work through it, and you'll try to recover from it and heal from it, and learn something from it, right, and be made whole in the midst of it. And so I think our commitment to you in this process, as we continue to have these discussions and we vote, and if you are welcome to come, is that we can promise you that we'll continue to create protected space for you and for your son to be able to live in this space that is messy and hard, because we're not a church that everybody agrees and thinks the same way. And I'll just say this to the whole church, but also to you as well. One of the things we're really trying to continue to live into as a church is to not be a church that's always on the defense, but to also be on the offense, meaning that we can explain what we believe without having to explain the things that we don't believe, right? So many of us are good at describing what we don't believe, but we can't articulate what we do believe. And part of that's a process of deconstruction, that there's sometimes we just don't know what we do believe. So someone asks us a question, we just say, well, I don't believe this, right? But sometimes when we say we don't believe, then obviously we can offend the people in this space who still believe that thing. So we as a church are really working hard, I think, to try to be intentional in our languages, to be generous in our listening and in our sharing, to not be people who are always on the defense, but can be on the offense, to just share. This is what I think, without having to share. You can hear all the things I don't think. So that's our commitment to you, that we're going to continue to try to work in that area. And I can tell that you share a similar value and principle in that the company that you keep, the story that you have, the way that you embody that in the way you live and talk and breathe. I can tell that when you said that you feel like you'd fit here, I feel like you have those qualities and you have those values. And so I'm grateful for the ways in which you embody those things to us. So if folks do have questions or thoughts about this process, just a reminder, you can speak with anybody that's on formation team, resource team, or ministry team, or the leadership team. And if you're like, well, who are those people? You can go to the staff page on the website. Again, shout out to Lindsay. And you can find their information there and who their names. You can find them on Facebook through that way as well. Whatever way is easiest for you to be able to share. Also, next Sunday after church, we'll be having an all-church town hall meeting, very similar to this format. It's just Melinda will not be here. She will not have access to that. That format, so you can just share your concerns, your questions, your thoughts, and we'll just have an open dialogue, because it's important for us to hear your voices in all of this, because not everybody in the church will have a vote because we don't have members. So it would be very difficult to decide who has a vote, who doesn't, how does that work. So unlike other churches, the way we've streamlined that is those 4 teams act as representatives of the congregation. And so your voices will be heard by those individuals, and they will cast votes to represent you, not just themselves. And so your voice in this process is very important. If you can't come to the virtual hearing, if you can't reach out to somebody and you have a small group that's meeting and you would like someone to go to your small group and to elicit feedback from that group, and your small groups are still gathering, again, reach out to the leadership team or myself. We'll connect you with somebody who can come and do that. If you don't do email very well or Facebook, or you have a lot more than you want to type out, somebody will call you if you let us know. And you can give feedback over the phone, and we can document that and share that with the broader group. So we just want to know your voice, your perspectives, your thoughts in this process. Also a Google form. Yes, that's right. There's a Google form to fill out, and it's live on the page right now. Fabulous. So scroll down to the bottom of Melinda's candidate page, and you can fill out the form. Fabulous. You guys are on it. This is like literally the most amazing search committee in all of human history. Like, I adore them. They've been really, really great to work with. So with all that before us, we're grateful that you joined us for this weekend. Can we just pray for you as you prepare to fly back tomorrow, I think it is, and just traveling mercies over you as you travel. God, we thank you so much for Melinda, the gifts she brings, the story and the vulnerability that she has shown us in her sharing. We thank you, God, for the ways in which our paths have aligned in this moment. Wherever the chips lie or wherever our roads lead, we thank you for this weekend. We thank you for the hope that was brought to us through the message that Pastor Melinda was able to deliver. And God, I pray that you would continue to speak to our hearts in those ways. You would continue for both Melinda and our congregation to give us discerning hearts and minds to engage this process, to know what it is that you have for us as a church. And us individually in this whole process. For all of these things, we thank you and trust that you go with Melinda and you are with her as she travels, her and her son Jack, believing that your word says that you will never leave us or forsake us. And so we trust in that hope that we have and to know that you are with her. So we thank you for that as she leaves this place and travels back home safely. In Christ's name, we thank you for all of this. Amen. Go in peace and love.
Favor is yours. May it be fulfilled in us. May it be fulfilled. A God who has set us free, you're sending us a Savior. A God who will set us free, one like David, only better. You told us through your prophets our enemies will not succeed. You told us through your